Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studio Series Core Class Laserbeak. So this was Laserbeak as we saw him in that scene in Transformers Dark of the Moon, maybe one of the creepiest scenes in any of the Bayverse films, where he asks that little girl if her daddy is home. So let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging, and we'll start right up there. There is that artwork. Looks pretty good there. The Laserbeak in his faux Bumblebee mode, that little pink Bumblebee mode. You've got Transformers Dark of the Moon right there. And then in here, this is not really a backdrop. It's just kind of that printed background where Laserbeak was sitting there having tea with that little girl when Mommy walked in. And down here, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Laserbeak, Transformers up the side. There you have that full body shot. On the back, you have your product shots. He converts to 15 steps. It is licensed by GM. And you have the official logo there, I guess. And then you have the sad baby, and the baby's sad because Laserbeak is impersonating Bumblebee and then killing little kids' parents. That's just evil. And then you have all this information down here. Over here, you've got a close-up of that face. He is a core class. And down there you have some additional information if you want to read it as well. So that is it for the packaging. Let's go ahead and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box, and as you would expect for a core class, it's just not a lot. But you do get your sheet of instructions, and then you get your instruction booklet, and you're left with the one accessory here, which is a simulation or a close facsimile of that hand cannon that Bumblebee uses. So Laserbeak uses one of these as well in that scene. So there you see, it's got some pretty good sculpt work. It is painted silver, so it looks pretty good there. Coming down here, you can see that it is molded in pink and then just has that silver paint on it. But overall, it looks pretty good. I mean, for a core class accessory, I think the sculpt work is pretty decent, and I do like that silver on it. So there you go. Now that's it as far as the accessories go, so we will just move right on in and we'll take a look at Mr. Laserbeak's details here. Here he is, that certifiably psychopathic bird from the Decepticon ranks. This is Laserbeak in his little pink Bumblebee mode. So let's bring him in and take a look at those details. And we'll start with that head sculpt. He is a little guy, so I'll do my best to try to keep him in focus here while also providing details. So you can see he has those beady red eyes and that somewhat Bumblebee-shaped face. And then he does have that grille right there. It is an officially licensed product, so you do have that Chevrolet logo. And you've got those headlights that are decked out in that nice silver, and then you've got that good-looking grille. And coming on down here, you've got some pretty good amount of sculpted detail in here for being really small. So he's got a good amount going on there. A little bit on the legs right there in the pink area as well. And then coming down here to the lower legs, you've got some good silver. And then coming down to the feet, you've got that pink. Now, you don't really have any hollow areas to speak of. Everything comes together pretty decently, I would say. He's definitely not the most articulated guy, but we'll get to that later. Coming around to the side, you can see even on the feet down there, he does have some nice sculpt work. And then you've just got a lot of the car on the side, and you can kind of angle these a little bit however you want. And then lifting those arms up, you can see it comes together okay. You know, it's a core class all the way through. Taking a look at those arms from the top, everything looks pretty good. You do have those ball joints right there, so they are a bit of an eyesore, but what are you going to do at this price point? And then looking up underneath, you can see you've got that ball joint there as well. Oh, where are you going? And then you have that sculpt work right there. And even on the back, it's not too bad. Now, speaking of the back, coming around and taking a look at Laserbeak from the back. Yeah, okay. He's all right. He's a core class. He's at that core class price point. I have definitely seen worse figures from the back than what he has, so I'm not going to sweat it too much. I think this is all right. Now let's go ahead and get him turned back around, and let's go ahead and we'll talk about that articulation on him. So as I mentioned, he's not the most articulated figure in the world. You do have a little bit of motion in that head, so you can take it all the way around if you want to, and then you have this ball at the base of the neck, so when you bring him up or down all that action is happening right there on that ball. So any side to side you get, it's going to be controlled by that ball. This is as far up as his head goes. His head goes down that far. It goes farther when this isn't in the way, but that's for transformation. So you do get a little bit of motion there. Now, you can also angle these doors however you want, I guess, to give him a little bit of expression, just like you would with Bumblebee himself. And then coming down here to the shoulders. These shoulders, you have rotation points right down here for the transformation. So if you want to call it a little bit of shoulder adjustment, you can get a little bit of shoulder adjustment out of that if you want to use it. Otherwise, the shoulders themselves are on ball joints, so the arms will come out that far, and then they'll go all the way around. And then down here at the elbow, same thing. So you have just over 90 at that ball joint, and that's also where your bicep rotation is located, and nothing else there on the arms. And coming down here, there is nothing at the waist, but you can get, if I get his arms out of the way without taking him apart, that's also the other thing. He doesn't really secure, so this just kind of slides over, so it's going to come up and down on you. But you can get a good full split out of him. He's not going to give you a Laserbeak Van Damme, but he will give you a Laserbeak full split. Kicking forward, bring that all back down. Kicking forward, you're going to get about that far. Kicking backward is going to be difficult because this car panel is back there. So if you're coming straight back, you're not going to get much. You're going to have to swing that leg out, and then you can get a little bit more. Sorry, I keep lifting this guy up. It's just par for the course here. He just doesn't lock in. So you can swing it back a little bit like that. And then these knees, I'm happy to say they're not ball joints, and they are very tight. So you can get a knee bend on him there, but you're not quite going to get 90 degrees. You're going to get less than that. So not incredibly mobile. No real thigh rotation to speak of either. These are on these ball joints down here, so all of your range of motion is just going to come in this ball. So straight up and down, you're going to get maybe a few degrees left and right as far as that goes, and then nothing at the ankles as far as ankle tilt goes, but you do have the ability, you can move those feet. Now, transformation, but you can still do it if you need to do it. So they go down that far, and then they go up that far. So limited articulation here. Overall, I think he looks good. He's just, as you handle him, he likes to pop apart, and he's not the most articulated. So posing is just a little bit difficult with this guy. Not impossible, but just a little bit difficult. So now that we've got that taken care of, let's go ahead and talk about his accessory. There's not really much that you're going to do with this. You're going to take the round peg and you're going to plug it into his hands and then simulate that hand cannon so he can blast some humans, I guess, because he's not really going to do much damage to any Autobots with that. But yeah, there you go. So bam, bam, bam. All right, get you. All right, so now that we have that, there is no blast effect compatibility, so no sense covering something that's not applicable. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and get into the transformation and get him into his little teeny tiny, I guess it's a Power Wheels Camaro mode. All right, let's get him transformed into his car mode. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to just kind of grab back here in this hood and make sure they stay separate from each other while you're lifting the hood up over the head. So once you get him here, take his little teeny tiny head and tuck it away right there in that little cavity. And after you've done that, turn your attention down here to the legs. So what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to separate this area from the foot. So if you just hold on to the foot and then grab this little bit here and give that a pull, you can see how they're separated. So separated, not separated, kind of give you the idea there. And then you're going to turn that foot and tilt it up until you can't move it any further. Then you're going to bring this back down, and that's just going to clamshell up, and that's going to form the rear of the car. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here. So we're going to hold on to that. We're going to lift that up. So these are separated. Swing that down, and then we're going to bring that down. And then you've got pegs and ports on either side, so you're going to make sure all those line up and give them a squeeze. All right, so once you have all that lined up, now you're just going to tuck the top part of this away into there. And then you've essentially got the top of the car done. So now you're going to turn your attention down here to these arms. So you're going to take these arms, you're going to swing them in and swing those arms down just like that. And as you do this, you want to make sure that you have these little ports, or the bottoms of his hands, turn them like that, because you're going to tuck everything away. So you're going to push down, and then they're going to sit at an angle right here just like that. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side. So bring them in, give them a little twist, tilt them right there, and bring those down. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take your doors, and your doors have pegs. They're going to line up right to those, and you're going to close your doors right on those, and then everything is going to be secured up. It's really just a matter of squeezing everything back together and making sure it is all put together. I do have a little bit of a gap in mine that I just can't get rid of, so little gap, little gap, little gap. So it is what it is. It's not awful, but that's what you have. All right, there you go. So I think for the most part that he looks pretty good in his alt mode. I mean, this is an officially licensed vehicle from GM, so it's going to look like the Chevy Camaro, and I think they've done a pretty good job of capturing that here. But let's go ahead and look at some of those details. I do have a couple of nitpicks. So starting up here at the front, we've already seen this in the bot mode. Everything looks good there. You do have that gold Chevy symbol. You've got those hot headlights decked in silver. And then coming around to the side, let's just go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room. It is my issue on most vehicles from Transformers. Front and back wheels don't match. You've got a pin right here. You have just an all black hub there. I get why the pin is here. I understand it's for transformation, but you couldn't have painted it black. You couldn't have done something just to help us out. So anyway, but minus that, I think it looks pretty good. It definitely matches the profile and shape of a Chevy Camaro. It looks pretty good. Not a lot of panel lines going on here. I mean, you just got this hinge right here and then just right up here at the top. But really, I think it looks pretty good as far as core class goes. Coming around to the back, good detail. A little bit of paint would have gone a long way here for the brake lights, maybe on those exhaust tips, that kind of stuff. But I think it looks pretty good. And coming around to the other side, it's the same thing, except I just have a little bit more of a gap right here, is what it is. And up here at the top, you do have some holes. So you got a couple holes on the roof. Now this one is for your weapon storage, which we'll cover here momentarily. And then you just have these holes here that I'm making the assumption they needed to be there for the transformation. So you can kind of see through the guy. And then coming around here to the bottom, it's not bad. You know, he has visible head syndrome, but it's technically the back of his head, so it's not bad at all. And I think he cleans up pretty well. Now, he rolls easily. I, however, do not have a friction-friendly surface. So very few vehicles roll on this plastic surface that I have. So I guess all I can tell you is he really does. You get him in this mode, he rolls pretty well. All right, so as far as weapon storage goes, or weapon use in the alt mode, not much you can do here except take your weapon, the hand cannon, and then you had the round peg you were using in bot mode and the rectangular peg you're going to use in the car mode. You're going to plug it in right there. You're going to squeeze it down, and yeah, there you go. It really doesn't look awful because it makes sense here. He's not trying to hide it. If he's in his Power Wheels Camaro mode, he's going to use it to try to blast humans. So that's my justification here, is it doesn't have to be elegant weapon storage because he is going to be actively trying to turn humans into mush. So, all right, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into those alt mode comparisons and see how he looks against some other figures out there. So for our first comparison, I figured we would just go ahead and start with where it all began, with that G1 Laserbeak. And yeah, he turns into a cassette tape, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison here, but that's how he scales up. So there you go. Moving on to our next comparison, this is Laserbeak in his other alt mode from the Dark of the Moon movie. So this was the original toy that came out when that movie premiered. So you can kind of get an idea of the comparison there between his two alt modes. Here we see Laserbeak next to a Legends scaled version of the bot he was impersonating. So this is the Legends scaled Bumblebee. And for our final alt mode comparison, here is Laserbeak next to the original Bumblebee toy that came out for that original 2007 Bayverse film. So this isn't the Bumblebee from Dark of the Moon. This is the Bumblebee from that first movie. But it's still one of my favorite as far as the toys that came out of that line. And I think he looks really good in his Camaro mode. So I thought this would be a nice comparison. So there you go. With that, the alt mode comparisons are over. Let's go ahead and get Laserbeak transformed back into his bot mode. We'll do some comparisons there. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and take that weapon off of him in his alt mode and just set that off to the side. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open these doors. That's going to free these hands up right here. So you just grab those doors, open them up, and that's going to pop those little pegs out, and then the arms are free. So then you can just lift them up like this, and then you can start swinging them outward and rotate them 180 degrees, just like that. While you're down here, go ahead and grab that little head and push him up right there so you've got something that looks like that. Coming down to the legs, this is probably already going to be separated for you, so all you need to do is just split those legs, and then we're going to do that lift technique like we did before. So you're going to separate these two from each other. You're going to bring the foot down, and that's not going to go anywhere. It's pretty much just going to stay right where it is. So moving on to the next one, same thing. You're going to, if I can get in there, you're going to separate those two, bring that foot down, and then you can give this a squeeze, but it's probably not going to go anywhere on you. And once you're here, now you're just going to bring this chest assembly down, making sure to clear the tires so they don't get caught inside this cavity right here. So just get those arms out of your way and then swing that down. And then once you get down here, you're pretty much in the home stretch. So rotate those arms around, rotate those around, bring them down, rotate them, and voila, you have Laserbeak back in his creepy little pink Bumblebee mode. For our first bot mode comparison, here we see Laserbeak next to Laserbeak. So this is the Laserbeak that came with, or comes with, that MP13 Masterpiece Soundwave. Next up is Laserbeak in his bird mode. This is the toy that came out when Transformers Dark of the Moon first came out, so you can kind of see those two different versions of Laserbeak from that movie together. Here we see Laserbeak next to a Legends scaled Bumblebee figure, so you can kind of get an idea here of how close the core class is in size to those old Legends class figures. And for our last bot mode comparison, here we see Laserbeak next to the bot he was impersonating. So this is Bumblebee. This was the toy that came out for that original 2007 movie. But I think these two guys actually scale up pretty well together if you think about it. This is probably about the size that Laserbeak would have been when he was talking to that little girl in his Power Wheels Camaro mode. So yeah, I think these two look pretty good together. Alright, that's going to do it for the bot mode comparisons. Let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts before Hasbro gets any bright ideas and releases a Laserbeak in his Xerox printer mode. So there you have the Transformers Dark of the Moon core class Laserbeak in his little pink Power Wheels Camaro mode. And I think, yeah, he's alright. He doesn't really move the needle for me as far as my emotions go. I guess it's kind of cool that they decided to do this figure. I can almost guarantee that we're going to see a core class Bumblebee that's going to use this exact same mold, because why waste an opportunity? But yeah, I mean, I guess he's perfectly adequate. But let's go ahead and jump into it, and we'll start with the overall aesthetics. I think he's got it here. This is one of his stronger points. He looks pretty good in his bot mode for a core class. Keep in mind, all of my scoring is based on the fact that we're looking at a core class price point here. So for a core class, yeah, I think he pretty much hits all the right notes as far as looks go. I do like the pink that they chose, and I think the sculpt work and the level of detail that they have on this figure is pretty good. And, you know, you do have a good amount of paint on this guy, so I think he does all right. Alt mode is definitely where he shines. I mean, this is a licensed product from General Motors, so they're going to nail that Camaro mode. I would have liked to have seen, you know, painted taillights, painted exhaust tips, something like that. The front looks good, but it's like they just decided to ignore the back and just save a few fractions of a cent on paint back there. But other than that, it looks pretty good. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the articulation, he really suffers here. He could have used a little bit more help from the design and engineering department. He can't look up. He doesn't have anything at the waist, nothing at the thigh, and no ankle tilt. So you're really limited. This is what you're seeing here is about the most dynamic pose that you're really going to be able to get out of this guy unless you have a very vivid imagination. But yeah, he's just kind of walking and shooting. So it doesn't really capture the Laserbeak that I think of that is, you know, fast and nimble and deadly. This just kind of feels kind of lumbering. So I think the articulation holds him back here. I'm only going to give him a 6 out of 10 for that articulation. Moving on to the accessories. Yeah, it's okay. You know, it's not exciting at all. It doesn't have any blast effect compatibility. It is meant to emulate the Bumblebee Bayverse hand cannon, and I suppose it does that job adequately enough. So I guess it has that going for it, and the fact that it's painted, so I guess it could have just been a molded gray piece of plastic, so I guess be thankful we got what we got. So it's just mediocre. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 on the one accessory that he comes with. Overall quality, one of his stronger points as well. Everything on this guy, all the joints are really tight, so I don't have any issues with that. He came with everything that he was supposed to. The paint looks good. The sculpt work looks good. There's no molding defects as far as I can tell. My biggest complaint is just in that alt mode. On that left-hand side of the car, I have a little bit of gap in the rear. It doesn't matter what I do, I just can't seem to get rid of that gap. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on quality. Moving on to our last bullet, which is overall value. I think he hits the mark here. The MSRP, I think, is where this guy needs to be, not above. Certainly not above. He's not going to be worth MSRP, just plain and simple. I picked this guy up at a local Target, and he was $8.49. So if you want to round it up, he was $9 US for picking him up at Target off the shelf, and I think that's a pretty good price point. He's just not going to be worth much more than that, but it was an easy pill to swallow for $9 to bring this guy into the fold. So I think overall value, I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on there. I think he does carry a little bit of value with him. So that brings us to our grand total. Out of a possible 50 points, the core class Laserbeak here gets 39 out of 50, which puts him at 78%. So I am not going to necessarily recommend this figure, but I'm not going to say no either. This guy is completely 100% up to you. Just know what you're getting into. I think that he's limited in his engineering and his articulation, but it's cool to have this little guy in the collection because it is one of those characters that we saw in Dark of the Moon. So with that, that's going to wrap the review up. I hope you guys got some good information out of this. I hope you got some entertainment, and as always, if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment if you feel like it, and if you know anyone that might enjoy this channel or this video, please share this video or share the channel with them, and we'll grow this community together. It's always fun to bring more people into it. So with that, that's going to wrap it up. Until we see you guys in the next review, take care.